welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
And we are here to discuss the latest in the Carolina Panthers coaching staff. It's coming together. It's not all together yet, but it is coming together. And there have been some nice surprises. There's been some things. In fact, I would say everything that we've hoped would happen, other than getting Fangio, has happened.
I would say we got so 1B in Fangio. I mean, let's go ahead and call it. I mean, Ejiro, I can't say his last name.
Evero. That's the easy one.
Ejiro. Sorry, I've had a couple drinks.
Ejiro
I had
Evero,
a 3-year-old that was very feisty. I took a drink. Ejiro Evero. I love the hire, but I mean, let's be honest. If Vic Fangio didn't come here, this is the type of guy that we wanted, that I thought would get a second head coaching interview here, because from what I heard, he's very impressive in person and his schemes were working.
I mean, we'll go into more detail on him here in a few minutes, but he was very coveted. Mm-hmm. He was a guy that was probably going to go to Minnesota if he didn't get this job. I think the Panthers probably made him one of the highest paid DCs in the league to get him here.
Probably.
Yeah. And I think it was deserved, honestly.
And not only that, if you look, maybe he looked at Minnesota's defense and looked at the pieces at Carolina and was like, I've got a young core here that I could really work with a Derek Brown, a Brian Burns, a J.C. Horn, Jeremy Chin playing out of position. I can work him better at linebacker, because supposedly that's already back on the table.
I hope so. I really hope it is. But I mean, this is the guy that made Patrick Surtain an All-Pro this year.
Yeah.
So I am excited to see what he can do with J.C. Horn, as long as J.C. Horn can stay healthy. I mean, he might be one and done here. And in fact, that wouldn't surprise me if he was one and done here. Just he was already getting head coaching interviews.
And impressive in him, supposedly.
And was being impressive, correct. So he could be a one and done coach here. But if he is, the Panthers are going to get draft compensation next year if he ends up going somewhere else as a head coach. So this is just a very smart hire all the way around. And again, we're going to get into some of the, statistics from the Denver defense and all that stuff a little later. There's some impressive stuff, but we do want to talk about a couple of guys that are staying on the coaching staff that we were really hoping, Reich would make that happen. So go ahead.
James Campen, offensive line coach, is staying here. I mean, we're talking about an offensive line that was close to dead last, really making strides last year. Yes, they got different players, but you could tell, like, Ike Ekwonu was really getting better as the season progressed. And that's what you want. And I was really hoping we'd have him stick around, and he is. Good on James Campen, good on the Panthers organization, good on Frank Reich for realizing this guy is good and having him stick around.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest one for me, was making sure that he stayed here, because he's another guy that's just extremely well respected around the league. He would have gotten a job like that. 30 other teams, maybe not 30, but 25 other teams in the league probably would want a guy like James Campen. So to have him stay around, and this could be our offensive line coach for the next 10 years if things go well, right?
And that's the dream. I mean, maybe in his dream is, bumping up to offense coordinator and going somewhere else. And maybe. Respectfully, I understand that, but at least we have a guy right now that seems like he can build improved players when we've struggled in this position before. And another one who's sticking around, Chris Tabor, the special teams coordinator, which we've seen dramatic improvement last year on, minus the return game, which still kind of sucked. But
well, they brought in what's his name, that
Andre
played
Roberts
for us. Andre Roberts played 2 games for us. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think the Panthers ended up as a top 5 special teams based on certain metrics. So that's a massive improvement from what we've seen in the past. So yeah, those were the 2 guys, right? Those were the 2 guys that we brought in last year that you and I were very excited about and who turned out to be really good hires, and they're staying. So I think that's perfect. I mean, everything that they've done so far, I think has been an A+, outside of maybe Reich and TBD if he's going to be the A+ or not. But they're surrounding him with the right staff so far, and that's only going to be a help to him.
And everything that Scott Fitterer has said is it sounds like it's going to be more of a cohesive type of situation that Matt Rule was not. As Matt Rule, like, I've heard some interviews where Scott Fitterer was like, now it's me and Reich discussing players, while before it seemed more like Matt Rule had final say. And I think the year before last was definitely all Rule.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much confirmed, is Matt Rule had final say on pretty much everything. And now seems like Scott Fitterer is going to have final say in personnel, as the GM should, in my opinion. And it's going to be Reich's job. And Reich's going to have input, obviously. Fitterer's not going to go out and get somebody that Reich doesn't want.
No.
But Reich is going to be in charge of the football team, right? The day-to-day, the schemes, the planning, things that he should be in charge of. So I think it's going to work really well.
I do too. And what you said, Reich is not going to say, I can't work with a running quarterback, and Fitterer goes out and drafts a running quarterback. There's going to be give and take. They're going to discuss it.
Yeah.
That's a hypothetical, so don't quote me on that, because Frank Reich has actually said, look where the game is going, and there's more mobile quarterbacks. So I mean, he sees it and he understands it.
Yeah, and by the way, when I said that everything's been an A+ except Reich, I'm not saying Reich is not an A+. I'm just saying I don't know if Reich's going to be an A+. I hope he is, but I'm happy with the hire. He just wasn't.
He wasn't high on our wish list. I mean, I understand it? Yes, but
sure, 100% understand it, and it seems like he was their guy for a while. Maybe since he got fired from Indy, honestly.
Before we jump into Ejiro, from what I heard is that Steve Wilkes actually encouraged this, not personally, but he said that David Tepper was really gung-ho on a young offensive-minded coach, and then when Steve Wilkes kind of rallied the team and he showed the leadership, and he was like, he showed David Tepper what a good older, not older, but like a leader of men type of coach can do, and that's what Frank Reich kind of exhibited in his interview.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, Wilkes did an amazing job when he was here. So I could see that changing. I think what mainly changed his mind was Ben Johnson deciding to go back to Detroit, because it felt like that might have been the guy. But either way, we've got Reich, and we talked about this. I've talked about this 1,000 times. Like, whoever they hired, I was going to talk myself into.
Oh yeah,
very quickly, and I already talked myself into Frank Reich. So what they're doing with the rest of the staff just makes it even better. Before we get to Ejiro, Deuce Staley was brought in. Offensive position TBD, it seems like. He could probably be the running backs coach if they do end up hiring an offensive coordinator here at some point. But he could end up being the offensive coordinator. I mean, you don't know what he's going to end up being.
I mean, honestly, Deuce Staley on your team is not a bad situation. I don't think he is going to be the coordinator. I think they would have went ahead and done that. But previous stops, last year he was the assistant head coach in Detroit, as well as the running backs coach. And again, running backs coach in Philadelphia, 2011 to 2020. So, I mean, or 2013 was running back coach, sorry. He had 2 years where he was special teams quality control, which is an interesting job. I think any young player that just retires gets that type of job, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was with Reich in Philadelphia for a couple years, I think. So he's familiar with Reich, and seems like he just wanted to be close to home. I think he's got some family members out here, and so likes Reich and wants to be close to home. Seems like a good fit. We were talking a little before. It seems kind of weird that he joined the team without a real position, but he was probably told, hey, it's at least going to be this.
Yeah.
And depending on what else happens, it could be this, right?
Yeah. So, you may be the assistant head coach / running backs coach and maybe offensive coordinator. We don't know. We have a guy in mind, but
it's going to be, it's going to be one of those two.
And that's hypothetically. Neither one of us know in the locker room, which would be really cool if we did, but we don't.
Right, yeah. He's apparently like a no-nonsense kind of guy, so I think he's going to be a really good coach to have on the team, because Reich is a very player-friendly coach, right? So I could see Deuce Staley kind of being a taskmaster and kind of the yin and the yang for both of those guys, so... not that Reich is a pushover. Not saying no. But
I was gonna say, you never know. Deuce Staley could be a player's coach too. He just may be a little bit more firm with it, or vice versa.
Sure. I'm not saying he's mean or he's like a drill sergeant, but from what I've heard and from what I've read, he's more of a, get in your face kind of guy.
Yeah.
Intense kind of guy, whereas Reich is more of a laid back kind of guy, right? So, I think that's a good combination on the offense. So offensive coordinator, as we mentioned, has not been filled yet. It seems like they might be waiting for the Super Bowl to finish and raid the Eagles staff.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing their QB coach is probably their preferred choice as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, which not a bad idea.
No,
honestly.
No. Not at all.
If you're going to rate a team that just went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Evero is the big name, right? He's the prize so far, I think.
I mean, this guy was interviewing for this head coaching job and now has joined the staff. He was like you said earlier, Minnesota had him penciled in as their defense coordinator. They loved him. They wanted him. I mean, the fans were all hyped up to get him. And Carolina kind of came in late and was like, you want to come here? And he was like, yes.
Here's a truckload of money.
Yeah, we don't know the money. Let's not say that, but we assume.
No, but I would think, because it seemed pretty, people were saying it was pretty clear that he was going to go to Minnesota. So for the Panthers to get him, it would not surprise me if they backed up the Brinks truck.
And that's fine. I am perfectly okay with spending David Tepper's money because it's not mine.
Quality. Right.
And that's exactly it. It's a completely night and day from the last regime where a bunch of no-name college guys came up here.
Yeah.
We got
their butts kicked.
Got their butts kicked. We get a high-quality coach who may not be here for long, which is fine in my opinion. If he improves and he gets a head coaching gig, great. Good for you.
Yeah.
And you know what he's going to do? He's going to probably make another guy below him better that could take his role. Sean McDermott did it with Steve Wilkes.
Yep. I think one of the things that was attractive to him here, from what I've read again, is he's going to have the ability to pick his own staff, which I don't know if that was going to be the case in Minnesota. I have no idea, but that apparently was very appealing to him, which is good because he's probably going to need to groom somebody to take over for him when he does end up leaving. And maybe we get a couple years out of him. I hope we do, because I think he's really good. Let's just look real quick at some of these stats from the Broncos. Now, I think he was only the defensive coordinator for 1 year, right?
Correct. He was with the Rams before that, which we'll touch on here in a second. But go ahead.
But the Broncos defense was like better with him,
and
that was a good defense to begin with.
Correct.
But and this is a defense, by the way, that had injuries like pretty much everywhere all season long. They still ended up 10th in DVOA, in defensive DVOA, 7th in yards allowed per game, which is kind of how you rank defenses, right? So they were the 7th ranked defense. 7th in opponents' points per drive, 2nd in third down success rate. Give me some of that, please.
Yes.
Right? 7th in red zone scoring, right? Opponents' red zone scoring. Again, we need that. 4th in defensive 3-and-out percentage, and tied for 14th in takeaways. So, takeaways kind of average, but everything else top 10. And that's 2nd and third down success rate, getting off the field. That's mad. That's so huge. And that's something that we have not had in years.
No.
Even when our defense was pretty good, we were still terrible in third downs.
Phil Snow's defense was bend, don't break. We'll do this weird umbrella style defense. But yeah, he doesn't do that. He does run more of a 3-4, like very
kind of a hybrid, but
it's a hybrid disguised type of
3-4, I think.
Disguised type of defense where basically he lines up, the quarterback makes a call, and the defense, once the ball is snapped or right before the snaps, adjust again to go into a different style. I'll be interested to see where a couple players line up in this type of situation where, like, Derek Brown, I would have assumed would be a defensive end in a 3-4, and you get a nose tackle, but Shaq was sitting there. Shaq on Twitter said that, no, you line him up at nose tackle, no center can contain him because he's a space eater. He's not, whoever our nose tackle is next year, if it's this 3-4, which we assume it's going to be under Evero, is not going to get fun stats, but he's going to be a linchpin to this style of defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because I feel like we need some things, right? We definitely need someone opposite Burns. Gross Matos is not that type of. Could be Luvu.
I was gonna say, I think you drop Burns back to the outside linebacker edge rusher with Luvu as the opposite edge rusher, because Burns has proven that he can actually play coverage well, as much as we don't want him playing. But then you can, Then
I think you have Chin out there is what I was thinking.
See, where do you fit Chin in? Because does he slide down into that 3-4 middle linebacker role, or do you slide him?
I think he plays the spot that you're talking about Burns playing.
So where would you put Burns? So who's your outside linebackers?
Chin and Luvu, right?
Then you're going to put Burns on the line, which usually doesn't.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that we have the personnel right now to make this all work.
I think Burns could be very.
It's very heavy on safeties and secondary too, and we definitely need more there.
Secondary help. Yeah, definitely safety, because Chin is not the guy. I think you could slide down Chin into the inside linebacker or even outside linebacker, depending on which Luvu fits better. And then you run the 3-4 with, Shaq, Luvu, Chin, and Burns as your linebackers. Up front, you're going to go Derek Brown, Etor, who's a bigger defensive end. And maybe you go ahead and shoot Derek Brown to the end and put Bravion Roy, or you have to go get another big end.
I saw someone say McCall. Put McCall at nose tackle because he's huge.
There you go.
But again, that doesn't seem right either, right? So, in terms of having Derek, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there needs to be some tweaks. I saw a mock draft where we drafted a corner in the second round.
I could see that.
People are seeing that. Yeah, I don't know. I need to sit down and look at it because I'm not super familiar with the positions on the 3-4 defense. This is why Jerry is he's the what am I trying to say?
I don't know.
You're good with the formations, right? I'm not good with the formations.
Okay, well, hypothetically, look at Hassan Reddick. Look what because look at Philadelphia. They run a very similar scheme to what Evero does. I mean, it's a 3-4 style, and basically he is now running that outside linebacker position where I think he had 14, 15 sacks this year, all pro. Yep. So, I mean, you're basically going to try to get Brian Burns to be doing that.
Okay. That makes sense then.
I mean, would it have been awesome to have already Hassan Reddick on this roster and then put Burns there, Dad?
Earlier. I was like, man, we let him go for nothing, and I'm curious to see if did they really try to re-sign him and he just wanted to go to Philadelphia, or did they just not pony up?
I think they didn't pony up.
You might be right,
but I'm very curious. Jordan Rodriguez, currently the Los Angeles Rams beat writer, former of the Panthers. She was on WFNZ earlier today talking about how Derek Brown is actually a huge piece into his defense, because in the Rams, they have Aaron Darnold. And you can make Aaron Donald do a lot of things because, Aaron Donald's probably the best player in the NFL position regardless.
Yeah.
For a long time. And they said she said Derek Brown could be a linchpin because he has that ability in him and is starting to grow into that he could start moving him around like he did Aaron Donald to really maximize the players on this defense.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I mean, I think that Luvu could be like a double-digit sack guy.
I do too.
Defense. Burns could have Reddick numbers. Should probably have Reddick numbers next year, right?
I think 13, 14 sacks is a very realistic thing with Burns this year.
Yeah. I mean, could he set the franchise record for sacks? He kind of came close this year.
Yeah.
And with nobody opposite him, really.
I mean, Casper's over there was getting more sacks. I mean,
yeah.
We had not an argument, but an issue with the fact that on 3rd down and long, Burns and Luvu, your best two pass rushers, were dropping back constantly, and no one was getting after them.
Yeah. I mean, that was a massive problem, and Evero, he likes getting after the quarterback, so it's going to be fun to watch, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be a nice change. This whole season, I feel like, is just going to be such a breath of fresh air.
It really is. But, yeah, the 3-4 really is predicated on getting after the quarterback and your corners having to stay up, which, I mean, a lot of 4-3s are predicated on that, too. I mean, that's how you win, but...
That's the name of the game. Yeah. Pretty much. But I feel better with him at the helm than I would like Holcomb or even Snow.
Yeah.
Who, again, was very, we're going to give you this, but we're not going to let you get that.
Yeah. And I'm really appreciative of the disguise style defense. Maybe that's just because I do look at formations and seeing hey, this one-on-one, you may be able to get DJ Moore, and then all of a sudden it flips over and, it's not what you thought.
Yeah. And Evero, he seems like kind of a young guy. He's got 15 years coaching experience. He's
42. I mean,
yeah.
For
coaching, that feels kind of young, but, he's not, fresh on the block. He's not a brand new guy.
No.
He's not, he's not in his 30s. He's got some experience. Frank Reich, 17 years. Deuce Staley, 12 years. Campen, 19. Chris Tabor, 14. It's a lot of years.
It feels like David Tepper realized some of his issues with Matt Rule and are going the complete opposite but, I mean, Evero's 42 years old. I mean, that's young in coach speak. I mean, as someone who's a little bit younger by a year, I agree. He's very young.
Oh, I'm way young. I'm way younger than him. Yeah, I mean, it is funny to see Tepper basically completely 180, go the total opposite direction, and he's getting praise for it. Like he's putting together a really good staff. He and Fitter are putting together a really good staff.
I mean, how can you argue this staff at this point? I mean, Frank Reich, who's been to the playoffs multiple years, who's been in the league for multiple years, has, and a lot of people don't blame him for the issue that occurred in Indianapolis. Granted, he never was able to develop a quarterback, but at the same time, they kept grabbing guys off the scrap heap / retirement AARP process.
I mean, the Luck retirement kind of caught him off guard, right? And they were forced to go with Brissett, I think, that year. And then they just kind of grabbed old quarterbacks. He's going to get to actually develop a quarterback this year. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind they're going to draft one in the first round. I mean, it feels like there's no doubt in my mind. No doubt.
I don't understand how they would not, unless they could not trade up to get their guy, and they're stuck at 9 and nothing happens.
That's the only scenario, right? As all 4 quarterbacks go.
Dude, I personally think there's 3, but
who's Levis or Richardson? Not your guy, or Richard?
Levis. Richardson is
People love Levis, man.
I do not.
Some people love Levis. Some people
at least Richardson, which I see the question marks and my early things. Levis has been starting for a long time. Richardson only got 1 year. So and he improved throughout the year.
And he's an athletic monster. Like he's just
Levis
amazing.
is athletic, but he didn't seem to improve this year. And it was like
no, I think he backslid some. And in fact, a lot of people are saying they're basing their evaluation on his 2021 tape. Because his 2022 tape just didn't look good.
Well, I mean
so I don't know what that says.
Hey, one time in high school, I played really great. Watch that tape and draft me in the NBA. No, I mean, doesn't matter. You got to look at the whole thing. I think Bryce Young, and I really think CJ Stroud's a guy. I think
so too.
I think the way that they've talked, and it sounds like Frank Reich doesn't like short quarterbacks, which I think you have to have a special ability as a short quarterback, like Drew Brees, to succeed in the NFL. I don't know if Frank Reich thinks that Bryce Young has that, which looking at the tape,
they may just
he's
not
very
trade
talented.
Up to 1. They may not want to trade up to 1, right? And you feel like that's where Young is going, but there's a lot of time between now and the draft. The combine's still going to happen, and you're going to have guys going up the board. You're going to have guys falling on down the board. I mean, Richards could end up being a second-round pick, and Levis could be the number 1 pick. Like who knows?
And Hooker. You never know where that guy. Yeah, I mean, he's an older quarterback. I mean, 25, old, but
he is old.
But
you're looking at
that guy, man. Stroud, he was looking special 23. In college earlier this year, like hitting everything, wide open receivers. But, sorry, we're talking about defensive coordinator. Sorry.
No, I think we've completed that discussion. All right, well, you'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we've got a mailbag. So we've got a question for the mailbag, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll wrap it up. So we'll be right back. And we are back. All right. We've got a mailbag from Luke R. Excuse me, mailbag question from Luke R. Hey, MeowMix. Thanks so much for reading my email. You're welcome. You do an excellent job with the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate it very much. I know there's been some talk over the last year or two about the Panthers getting a new stadium. I want to get your opinion on when and if it might happen and what it might look like. Thank you for your time. This has been since David Tepper bought the team. this has been kind of a point of discussion for Panthers fans. What is a new stadium going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
This stadium is going on 30 years old now.
Yeah, right around there.
One of the older stadiums in the league. I would expect, the win probably within the next 5 years. We're going to hear about plans for a new stadium.
Yeah, I was trying to really quickly. I know whenever they did the big upgrades that they signed a new lease, but I don't know when exactly that ends. I was trying to look that up real quick while you were talking. I think
it was like 6 years or something, or 10 years maybe when they signed. I don't know, but it's coming up, right? I mean, it's like 2025 or something. It's coming up. I wouldn't expect, obviously, a new stadium's not going to be built by 2025.
No.
But I think within the next 10 years, we'll have a new stadium. And within the next 5 years, we're going to hear about the plans for the new stadium.
So
where's it going to be? No idea. Go ahead.
In 2004, Charlotte-based financial services company Bank of America purchased the naming rights. That's a naming rights. I apologize.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not look for that anymore because we know there's a lease. We know it's coming up probably within the next 5 years or so. What do you think the next stadium is going to look like? It's open air, right?
Open air, because David Tepper has said that now that he lives here, he understands why it's open air, and he'll probably continue to keep it that way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only reason to do a dome would be to try to get a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that Charlotte has the infrastructure for a Super Bowl.
I think it could. But I also think that the Giants-Jets Stadium got a Super Bowl, and it's open air in New York in February.
True.
So I think, unfortunately, as much as this hurts Charlotte's taxpayers, the $1 billion stadium that will be built will do that. And let's not kid ourselves. David Tepper is a businessman. He's pulled that off with Rock Hill. He's pulled it off in business multiple times. And I personally feel that Rock Hill was just not only a bluff, but it's a way of showing Charlotte, hey, if you don't give me what I want, if you start playing these little games after we made an agreement, I'm out. I will move this team. I will move the soccer team. I don't think
that was his plan.
I don't either. But
I agree with you that his actions, the Charlotte City leaders and North Carolina leaders that make this decision of how much money to give him, that's something they're going to have to think about hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've seen that Tepper will pull the plug. He will. Now with a stadium is very different, right? But that was a big deal down there. That was almost $1 billion practice facility he was building.
Correct. And to be fair, they had an agreement, and then Rock Hill politicians got involved and started reneging on their agreement, and that's when the plug was pulled.
Yeah.
I don't think you can agree with him and then try to renegotiate afterwards. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Which is a bummer, because I was really looking forward to going over to that place and watching training camp and stuff.
Yeah,
much closer than flipping Wofford. But
Wofford's in the hot sun. Maybe they would actually add some shade or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
More fan experience.
Like a nice place, but yeah, I would look at the new stadiums. The Raiders Stadium, the Rams Chargers Stadium. Those are both enclosed.
Mm-hmm.
But just that type of technology, the money that was involved, I feel like we're going to see that type of investment here whenever that stadium is built.
Look at the Dirty Birds. I take calling Atlanta Falcons, but they have...
dome.
Yeah, but it's a dome that has an opening. that maybe
that's what I'm saying. Do you think there's a retractable roof option for Tepper? I mean, that would kind of solve some problems.
I think that
you
would
could have
be
Final Fours, you could have all kinds of stuff.
Final Fours, all his concerts that, didn't exist here in Charlotte until he came here.
We never had music before he came here.
No. I mean, it was a great invention by David Tepper. I have headphones now, and I never knew what to use them for.
Yeah. You just thought they were like to warm your ears.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to a new stadium because, some of these really newer stadiums are super nice. I mean, it makes you want to go to a game just to experience the stadium. I've been to Dallas's stadium, and it's a different experience. Honestly, it is a different experience watching a game there than watching a game here. It just is.
I haven't gone to one of those fancy stadiums. I've been to Raymond James, which is really fun. I do like the atmosphere at Raymond James because they have the boat. Besides the boat, they have little shanties as shops and stuff like that sell hot dogs and everything else. But it's really kind of a atmosphere style thing. Granted, I went there more towards college games, but USF Bowls. And then I went to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is an older stadium that
is very similar to ours.
I felt like when I walked through there, that place felt older and decrepit.
But it's about the same age as ours.
Yeah, but it did not feel as nice. Like, even to this day, I know that I'm more partial to the Panthers, but when I walked through that Jacksonville, it just felt different.
Felt like Jacksonville, the city.
Kind of, yes. Where you're walking through the concourse, you might find a needle. I don't know.
Well, we know Tepper's going to spend money, right? We know he's going to want the best. He's going to want state of the art. He's going to want top of the line.
Yeah.
And that's going to be nice to see. How much is it going to cost taxpayers? Who knows? Who knows? But it'd be nice if he'd just pay for it himself.
Nah, he won't do that. He's a businessman.
He won't do that. But all right, well, thanks for the email. If anybody else wants to ask us a question and hear our answers on the podcast, just shoot us an email, mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. Shoot us a Twitter message at meowmixpodcast. Comment on YouTube.
Yeah.
What other ways can they get us? Smoke signals. Send Jerry a letter in the mail. Here's his address.
No, let's not do that.
There's plenty of ways to get at us though. So please do. We love talking about the mailbags.
Yeah, no, it was a good question, and it's now having me a little nervous that the team's going to move again. But
anytime you start talking new stadium, that's always a concern. What if the city doesn't pony up? What's he going to do?
But here's the thing: is like financially, stadiums are not a good investment for cities.
Yeah.
I mean,
but having an NFL team is. So, and if he can build a stadium to get a Super Bowl here, that's a huge amount of money.
I was in Tampa I lived in Tampa when they had a Super Bowl, and yes, it brings not the city to a halt, but it is such a atmosphere and stuff.
Yeah. It's a massive event.
I mean,
and just, you get everything that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Right. You get the airtime, you get people going to the local restaurants, and
I mean,
it's just a huge boon to the city.
I knew people who live pretty close to the stadium were renting out their house for that week for basically 6 months worth of mortgage payments.
Yeah.
They're like, I went to a hotel in Orlando for a week and I got everything paid for, and my mortgage was paid for 5 extra months. So yeah, I'm good.
I mean, it's something. So your Final Fours as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of benefits to having a nice stadium that has the option to be enclosed.
Yeah, right? The Mayo Bowl's here till 2030, I think I read. Yeah. So that's
thank God. All right, got that. All right, Jerry. I think that's going to do it.
All right. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. And if you have any questions, or leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We'll be back sometime, probably within the next week.
Super Bowl prediction.
Super Bowl predictions. I'm going KC 24, Philly 23.
I'm going KC as well. I'm going to say 32-24.
I think it's going to be a fun game.
I do too, man. I'm so excited for this game.
I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back sometime after the Super Bowl, and we'll talk probably new OC and whatever else is going on. Until then, everybody stay safe out there. Enjoy the weekend. Keep pounding.